Welcome, everyone, and thank you for joining us today. We've got Primo, Roz, and 0x Maki with us. Hope everybody's great today. Super excited here about LayerZero launch, and some of you have heard the Stargate token launch is happening as well. So yeah, thanks guys for coming on here. Really just want to start off with telling us a little bit about how the development process here has gone with LayerZero, and just kind of talk about a little bit of that stuff. So yeah, Primo, Roz, if you guys don't mind kicking it off here, just give us a little what's up, and yeah, give us some color here on the development process here with LayerZero and everything that's gone on.
Raz, all you, if you want to take it, Ryan.
Yeah. So we had actually, I don't know if you guys know, we started like building this, like the core protocols of LayerZero back in March. And even though LayerZero was done this summer, we have spent an ungodly amount of hours testing and just making it as more efficient as possible. The most efficient piece of code we think out there. Like it's like 795 lines of code down from a couple thousand. Gas savings, we've cut it more, I guess, both sides almost in half, and reduced the surface area of attack to like almost nothing. This code is pretty much as good as it gets for messaging, and we're super proud of it. And on top of that, we also built Stargate, which we've simulated millions of messages, millions of transactions, have a huge robust test suite that I guess the 12 audits that we've had thus far between Stargate and LayerZero, all the auditors have said how pretty much amazing our coverage is, and like the full end-to-end testing that we do. It's not just about the 100% line coverage that we achieve on the core code, but also the full end-to-end spectrum, right? Of like trying every permutation and the simulations and everything, just because this has to be perfect, and we really think it is. On top of that, we had one of our files yesterday, which is funny, and LayerZero had 99.9, like 6 or something percent coverage, and Riley, a shout out to Riley, he could not live with that one line of code not covered, so he wrote a piece of code that simulated and edited the memory to get it to a state where it could hit this line, because otherwise we'd have to run like 10,000 transactions, and like to do that in like a hard hat and run it and simulate that, it would just take a long time to run to those tests. So he manipulated the memory to get it to that state to hit that test. And he's going to push that later to get the full 100%, because he just couldn't live with that. And that's just kind of like how this team
Yeah.
is, where we just want everything to be perfect, and like kind of like our motto that has been instilled in Caleb, Brian, and I since we started working together out of college is better is better, and that's just kind of sticking to that. The whole team is really bought into better is better, and that means we ship the best product we can, and with no compromise.
Yeah, amazing, and that's what's really important throughout all of this. And like it's cool to hear about yeah, this just that perfection aspect of things too. So that's where we're headed. But I don't know, Primo, if you've got anything else to add to that, and maybe even just talk a little bit about the development process here, even over the past few months, and just how that's all gone with the team and everything.
Yeah. I mean, I think the dev process it's super fun. It's pretty unique. If anybody read the thread, like you saw, I mentioned we're all just like locked in a room in the Bahamas, and so we have 20-ish, I think 20 out of 24 people right now here locally with us, and so like when we came out here, I think 70% of us were meeting for the very first time. And like I've worked remote my entire life, right? Like my last 15 years, I've never been in an office. So we have a small hut, we call it. It's basically like a small office. You can maybe fit 30, 40 people in max. And we have just been in here every day. Most people come in at 9, they leave at 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock at night, and it's just kind of been that for 2 straight months, to just kind of this coalescence of everything getting us here. I think the broad dev process is like anything else. You try to you start with architecture, you try to make the best possible architecture. Everybody argues and fights about it, and you get a lot of really good conversations. It's just like trying to get to ground truth, right? Like you try to break everything. You try to what is the most hardened possible way that you can make something? How can you break it? How can you make it better? How can you make it the easiest possible thing to build upon? And then post that is just like implementing it, right? Like it's like Ryan said, it's optimizations around the core code. It's getting UI in a state where everybody's happy with, and it's just like getting all of these people all together to be really, really, really bought into the same thing. And I think that's like the most fun part of it by far.
Yeah, incredible, incredible. Oh, this is it's been quite an experience, and yeah, really excited with the team. And speaking of which, here just as of yesterday, the full announcement for Zero X Maki. Hey, thank you so much. It's so cool that you've joined the team, and yeah, I guess yeah, welcome. Hello.
Thank you, Sir Tango.
Yeah, I
Just
guess
listening to Raz, by the way, and Primo. Like, not sure if you get the vibe of what type of individual I'm working with here. Like people that don't take like compromise. Like just a light touch or anything like this. You need to have something perfect, otherwise it's just not gonna go through. And the most impressive thing is I remember like we were kind of debating on the aspect of bridging only USDC over like a bunch of these chains. And of course, like the truth is there is like multiple flavor of stablecoins. So what they did is literally like wrote a new model in like less than a day, I think. I'm not sure Raz like how much time it took you to get this contract done, but it was extremely fast when we raised like the flag about this problem. So that was incredible. Just like a side note of this past 2 months in the Bahamas, like that was it was great.
yeah, that's so impressive, so impressive. So Maki, just wanted to ask you too. How did you first find out about LayerZero, and what was that like?
Kind of started, like I said in the Twitter thread yesterday, like in September. Had this kind of, I guess after kind of this whole kind of sushi thing, was thinking what should I be doing next? Of course, like taking a little bit of rest and kind of doing an introspection. What did I do wrong? What did I do good? Etc. Etc. Led me to think about like kind of I've always been a very big multi-chain advocate since, like you can dig up my post in September 2020 about the fact that Sushi was not going to stay only on Ethereum, was going to go on Polkadot, was going to go on, like a bunch of other places, etc. And, after kind of doing all these deployments, we realized, well, like this is great, but at the same time, we are running low on incentives. We are also like fragmenting all of this. The UX is pretty horrible. Like just like the time it takes to bridge over, the security concern. Like this is back in the days when like Avalanche, for example, was running a very bad bridge with only like a multi-sig. Uh, Now they improved a little bit, but it's still like all these canonical bridge to me are a little bit worrying. Same for Polygon. Even very recently, we saw kind of optimism. Someone declared like kind of uncovered like a niche news on it, where they could have mint like infinite like amount of optimist ETH and so on and so on. So it was kind of from where I started. And then I kind of sat down, I looked into Connex, I kind of went through the whole kind of 10 transaction signatures, which were a little bit horrible, to be honest with you. There was then, of course, like there was Synapse. Synapse got, exploited on Binance at some point. It was an arbitrage, but still, like, doesn't seem very safe. So actually, like, where I kind of dabbled into, I felt like, well, it's very interesting to have like all these yield opportunities across all these chains, but definitely we haven't found kind of the silver bullet for this problem. So I started to dig more and more, and ultimately I met with Raz and Primo. I think after 2 or 3 hours of discussing, I didn't necessarily like jump in all hands, but I actually went to LisCon, went to Portugal, and I spoke with other people. I met actually like some of the other bridge builders, um, some anons, some non-anons, and kind of debated inside and said, well, like this seems to be like the best team. This seems to be solving like the problem the way I see it, which should be like a one transaction. should be extremely cost efficient, like low gas fees and so on. And yeah, like that's kind of the whole kind of topo. And from there, like started to get involved. I was actually like I joined the team as I think number 4 or 5, not sure. Raz or Primo could probably like can can rectify, but basically, and then we grew to like basically over the past 3 months to more than 20. So it's been an extremely quick journey. Well, yeah, that's kind of the whole kind of topic. And now today that we're seeing LayerZero live, um, with Stargate being enabled in the next like 48 hours, that's where I think everyone is going to realize why I decided to get implicated, to contribute, and basically be part of the team.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for unpacking all of that. And it's, yeah, it's amazing to see where, just to, like to see what you see within the ecosystem and how this is going to help so much and the problems that it solves and just removing those pain points. I mean, that's what we're seeing here so far. But with yeah, I guess like with LayerZero going live here, you know, for this is maybe more for Raz and Primo here. Like, what can people expect, and you know, kind of like what can they build on top of, or how can they get involved, and things like that with LayerZero now.
Yeah, so I mean, I think the biggest thing has always been like, okay, we have, even when we announced months ago, we had a ton of like external interest. Like people were very clearly, it resonated with people. You can see it, like we tweeted one time and we had like 45,000 followers on Twitter or something. Like it was very clear that this was an issue to solve and people were very interested and they cared a lot about. And so we've talked a ton to basically every team at this point, and it's really just been about get out there, show that it works. Like we always wanted to launch with something flagship. So like Stargate is that thing. It is this proof of concept that everybody can see working at scale, at large scale. It solves like a really key issue with liquidity transfer, like between chains and applications trying to build on top. And then now I think it's sort of like up to everybody else to see all of the cool things. The things we had in mind very early on were like unified governance was absolutely one. You have these projects are deploying on tons of chains. You have tokens that live on a ton of chains, but you can only do voting from one. So like unified on-chain governance, dexes like swaps across chains are so intuitive. Bridges are so intuitive. Um, Absolutely, lending protocols where like it's very clear that you want to collateralize, let's say your ETH on Ethereum, and then just borrow directly on the destination chain. So like all of existing DeFi, as they start to move to other chains, as they want to expand their reach, kind of the largest projects and the best projects, you want them to be able to do this kind of seamlessly and not this piecemeal fashion where you'll have 10 outposts and none of them will be connected and they're basically independent but with limited rewards. So from that perspective, like I expect you will see lots and lots of sort of like key DeFi pieces starting to move in that direction. And then since we announced, we had like almost 50% of our inbound was gaming and NFTs, which was totally not something I expected early on. There has been such a huge presence from that industry and being able to do things, whether it's, everybody has seen Axie go to Ronin, right? So they live like between Ronin and ETH. Everybody now, you see this with Avalanche subnets. You see with lots of sort of other areas where the prospect of having your gameplay on one chain and having other things resolve others, whether you have your gameplay live multiple places or maybe you're on a fast a fast chain. And I don't want to call out any specific project, so let me think. Let's say you're playing a game with bears and bears or whatever, there's this whole game around it and that lives on some chain that's fast. Well, maybe you have like a bear cave that lives on Ethereum, and so you can do 1,000 clicks and 100 hours of playing this game on one chain, and then you can like mutate or impact that game state on another chain, and you can do things that kind of like resonate there. Marketplaces there. You can now start trading, NFT marketplaces across, wallet integrations across every chain. There's all of this stuff that like is such a natural progression. Wallets is like another super obvious one. But I think what you'll really see is you'll see everything start to move in that direction, and you'll also see the way that applications are designed change. I think there's a huge space for design space to change, where now everything is written like you would write an application in like the early web, right? You write like one single contract, it lives You'd write an application, it would live on a computer, and you'd host it like in your house, or you'd put it in like a rack in a data center. They were all single server applications, but now like application design is really complex. And so now you can have chains that are hyper optimized for storage or throughput. And you can do really interesting things where you can offload like really complex computation to the throughput chain, and you can have all your storage on the other chain, and you can have entire designs that we've never seen before be played around with now. And I think that's super fascinating.
Yeah, absolutely. Like you just showcase like the what's all unlocked here and what's totally possible. So this is super exciting, and I mean I can hear it in your guys' voices how enthusiastic you are, and just seeing the progression over the past weeks and months has been incredible. So yeah, so just going back over towards Stargate now, we do have the launch auction coming up here right away. So yeah, I guess just a little bit for people on that. We can kind of talk about that. Just starting Thursday at 12 Eastern time is the launch auction, and that will be 25. So sorry, 25 million will be up for contribution. Raz or Primo,
Oh,
though.
sorry.
Yeah, it's okay.
Yeah. Sorry, I was muting. Yeah, so Stargate auction starts tomorrow, and so basically the goal of tomorrow for the protocol is really protocol and liquidity. So the point of Stargate is, if you're a yield aggregator, right, you really want to focus on two contract interactions. You want to unstake some dollars or tether from chain A and stake it on chain B. You don't really want to reinvent how the heck do I get this tether from chain A to chain B? Do I send my user away to some external bridge? Do I have a wrap synthetic? Do I do all of this? And so Stargate's goal is to just abstract that away completely. Now the application simply unstakes here, composes Stargate, stakes there. And from the user perspective, it's one flow. They click one single time. They don't need to have the destination asset. They don't need to think about anything else. And you're magically now farming in the other farm. So you think about how powerful that is, both for the yield aggregator wallet, for the yield aggregator, and for like the wallet who lives on top, who wants to make this really easy, where like, okay, now the user can jump between 20 farms on 8 chains, and they don't need to think at all about what the underlying gas asset is, what chain they're on, anything, right? All of that can be fully abstracted away. In the same way, a DEX wants to swap on chain A and swap on chain B, and if they need to reinvent this liquidity transfer portion in the middle, that becomes like a really really high burden. Like there's just so much complexity there that gets added in. But now, if you take something like I'll use Sushi Swap as an example, right? It was deployed on 14 plus chains at this point, but you can't swap between them. Well, now Sushi on chain A can, right, the interaction for Sushi to integrate now across LayerZero and Stargate and be multi-chain and have multi-chain swaps is literally wrap your two Sushi contracts, compose Stargate, done. So Sushi on chain A gets an ETH, let's say, and spits out USDC. The USDC is taken and moved across Stargate. All messaging risk, all liquidity risk, all liquidity lives within Stargate. Sushi on chain B gets in USDC, spits out asset X. That's also atomic. That's exactly how Sushi works now. So now for Sushi to go multi-chain in this fashion, it's literally zero changes to core protocol, zero liquidity to put up, zero incentives to provide the liquidity. There is nothing at all that they need to do from a development standpoint other than wrap these contracts, compose Stargate, and it's a pull request into the UI, right? And so that, I think, is hugely powerful when you're talking about top-down adoption of existing DeFi protocols and how you get that adoption, how you most easily enable them to become multi-chain immediately by retrofitting kind of past structures.
And this fits in how many lines of codes, by the way, Primo?
It's an incredibly small line of code. Ryan can say specifically, but I think when we did the demo, it was like, what was it, 30 or something? It's like a very, very small.
30 lines.
Yeah,
So
30
literally
lines.
30 minutes integration.
It's actually on the docs. I can find a link. We actually posted it so you can see it. So anybody can actually deploy that once Stargate is live tomorrow. So you can deploy that and have that up immediately.
Yeah, and so then to talk about, I know Tangle, you're asking about the auction specifically. So it's set up in a couple of phases. The first phase is the auction. USDC comes in. There's a cap of 25 million USDC. Stargate tokens go out. So let's assume we hit the cap. So 25 million USDC comes in. That's going to set the 100 million tokens that are going out to the purchasers at 25 cents per token. And those 100 million tokens are, which is 10% of the total supply, those are frozen for 12 months and then unlocked over 6 months linearly. Then 50 million tokens, so 5% of the supply, and the 25 million USDC is put up in the protocol on a DEX. There's protocol and liquidity. So now Stargate, the protocol, owns this. There's now $50 million of liquidity that's sitting in a Curve V2 pool that anybody can go and buy from or sell into, right? So that exists. Still at this point, there are no tokens in circulation other than this 5% that live within the DEX. Then we open up the bonding curves. So bonding curves run from, again, it's 2x whatever the price it was at the auction. Remember, the auction has this 12-month freeze and 6-month linear unlock. So it's a 2x price jump, but the tokens are immediately liquid. So the bonding curves, assuming the auction is sold out, will start at 50 cents and they'll run to 3x that price, so to $1.50. This is linear price. So the first token will be 50 cents. The midpoint token of all tokens on the curve will be $1, and the last token would be $1.50, right? So that's how the price increase works. This will be on all 7 chains at once, plus the pools that are enabled. So some will have USDC, some will have USDT, some will have both. And so what will happen is anybody can purchase off the bonding curve. If the bonding curve, they can always look for the best price, right? There'll be all these curves around. You can say, oh, actually, it's, it might be 80 cents on Ethereum, but it's only 67 cents on Avalanche or on Optimism. And you can even jump over Stargate. I'm going to take my USDC, move it over Stargate to this chain, and I'm going to take it off that bonding curve. And then the DEX as well, right? There'll be this kind of stagger step function between the DEX and the bonding curves where maybe you can get it from the bonding curve at X price and the DEX is lower, the DEX is higher. And so there's all this interaction between it, but it's really, the goal of this is like efficient price discovery rather than just having some insane mechanic on where price goes. This is like pretty healthy and efficient price discovery, and all of the liquidity, every single USDC or USDT or whatever it is that's contributed to this goes directly into the protocol. So it goes to LP, the Stargate pools, to create protocol-owned liquidity with the pools, which will generate fees, which again will be retained in the protocol. So like none of this goes to the team, none of this goes to anybody else. It's 100% owned by the protocol, and the goal of it is actually to make the protocol efficient, right? Because you can rent liquidity, but renting liquidity is extremely expensive. Right? You can have 1 million tokens and maybe you attract a huge amount of liquidity, $1 billion of liquidity. But when you're done your 1 million tokens, like what happens then? Nobody's incentivized to keep the liquidity anymore. And that's a really big risk to protocols building on top of it, because what do? Because they've built and kind of established this strategy on top of you, but now you can't attract liquidity anymore. So the focus being on protocol-owned liquidity, that means longevity for every application who's ever built upon Stargate. It means permanent liquidity that can be used across Stargate forever. And it means that, again, all of the fees also accrue, like a portion of the fees of the LP fee, because the protocol owns some of the LP, accrues to the protocol. So there will be rented liquidity. There'll be emissions. People can stake and farm and do that early on. But the goal over time is to grow the protocol and liquidity and be the deepest pools of liquidity across all chains, across all DeFi applications.
Amazing. Yeah, thank you for unpacking all of that. That's hopefully that gives everyone a really solid explanation of how this is all going to work and how Stargate is planning to work into the future as well. Some of you may need to go back and listen to that. So I hope this is going to be recorded and is live streaming to YouTube, so you'll be able to check all that out afterwards. But one key thing that I wanted to point out there, which is super cool, is that as these bonding curves are going on, Stargate will be live. You will be able to use it. You will be able to bridge between between networks. So as you need, as you see, like as you pointed out, if there was it was cheaper to bond over on a different chain, you will be able to do that. You will be able to experience how it works. And we're super excited to get people using it. So that's super cool.
A small detail I think Primo didn't touch on. I think everything that is going to be on the bonding curve is going to be available directly for the person pledging, compared to the initial auction, public auction.
Yep, that's exactly right. So no, only the auction has that 12-month lock, 6-month linear unlock. Everything else, there's no freeze, there's no lock. Everything is immediate.
Yeah, amazing. So then, So that starts tomorrow at 12 noon Eastern time. So the auction will start at that point, and yeah, people will be able to start contributing there, and then the bonding curves will go live right after.
For Stargate itself, there is no none of it is going to team, right? It's all within the protocol. It's all meant to be in the protocol. The auction is
Beautiful.
actually open. It's the auction is totally open. The bonding curves themselves are totally open. We thought part of it is a resource constraint side where we could implement these, let's say, a max per person, right? But what's going to happen is all of the people who are good at programming, they're just going to sybil that. They're going to make 1,000 accounts, and they're all going to do this. It's very hard to create like pretty reasonable constraints that can't be gamed. And so for us, we thought the most egalitarian thing is just make it open. Everybody's going to know the block. Everybody's going to have the ability to pre-approve. So while it's not up now, prior to the auction, there'll be this period of time where everybody can just pre-approve the contract on the site. Everybody can be ready, waiting for that block. And the auction will happen, and everyone will have the open chance to get in. We'll see how long it lasts, whether it's one block or multiple blocks or whatever.
Cool. Well, yeah, we're looking really forward to that. And yeah, and if anybody has questions, of course, you can reach out in Discord, or we do have the Telegram open as well. But yeah, keep bringing your questions in there. But I don't know, you guys good with bringing up a couple of people? We've seen some hands up here. Do we have time for a couple of calls? Or sorry, a couple of questions?
Absolutely. 100%.
Let's see here. We've got Dub Spencer. I've got you. If you've got that, I'll bring up a couple people at a time here, just in case you are unable to. If your microphone's not working, I know that happens with some people. But Dub Spencer, Romans, Rack, maybe I don't know if nothing's coming up there yet. Yes, what we got here. Vorniclex? Yeah, if you can. Vorniclex, you got something for us.
Yeah, so I just thanks for having me up. Looking forward to this launch. I did hear Maki mention something about KYC and it wasn't quite answered. And just to latch onto that one, what's if there is no KYC, what's the anti-botting framework that you guys have going on?
Yeah, I can just repeat what Primo said. So there's going to be no anti-botting. Everything is going to know the block. You'll be able to basically like ape in like everyone else, going to be able to pre-approve, and basically going to be more fair. So yeah, that's kind of where we stand on this.
Yeah. So
All right.
just to mirror that on the bot side, I think again, bots like there's one block period, right? So it's going to be in the first 13 seconds. Everybody will basically have that period to submit a transaction. I think there are some ways you can get advantage or not, but I think anything you make, let's say we set even a really egregiously low cap, like I don't know, $500 cap per person, right? Something like that per wallet. It's so easy programmatically to make a script that just basically exploits that. So what you do is you make it so the individual person who's doing this manually, who's clicking, is at a huge disadvantage. Like the more you do that, the more advantageous that it becomes to do things programmatically. And the more basically of an issue that becomes, in my opinion, I think is like the more of the overall percentage. Right now, everybody has the opportunity to pick their whatever amount they want, submit with max gas, submit whatever, and basically just be in that block. The block number will be published ahead of time. Everybody will be able to approve ahead of time. So bots doing like a, where they approve and buy in one transaction is like an advantage they would get over a regular user if it was basically done in that manner. So all of this is meant to be like as egalitarian as possible, as like, here's the block, pick the gas, pick the amount, just like a pure auction. And basically those, you're basically, the auction is on gas at this point. If it goes super fast, it's what are people willing to pay for gas, and what does that look like? I have no idea what the outcome of that will be. Again, this is why the bonding curves are kind of the non-locked alternative that will be everywhere, and that I think maybe will be a little bit less insane early on.
All right, thanks for answering.
Awesome. Thank you. Okay, next up we've got I see late. somebody here I'm going to bring up Late and Zulian. Yeah, Late. Hey, hi there. How are you?
I'm good. Thanks for picking me for the Q&A. I have two questions. First is regarding Stargate. So basically, I see that Stargate is a product made by LayerZero Lab, and we can also see from the internet that LayerZero Lab just raised $1 billion valuation round. So, is the like LayerZero also plan to launch a token sometime in the future, or like there is no plan right now? Like, if we can throw some light on that, that will be great.
Yep. Yeah, sure. Absolutely. So I think I'm potentially a little bit limited about what exactly I can say. What I can say is that always from the beginning, we thought, despite LayerZero Labs developing both, that it sets a very bad tone if any individual application, it doesn't matter what it is, it doesn't matter if it's the largest DeFi application now, something we built in house, or something the smallest team is building. If anybody is given any advantage at the LayerZero protocol level, then basically everything is basically you know I don't know, some cesspool of nepotism, right? So we thought there was no world in which it would make sense to say incentivize Stargate out of resources of LayerZero, the protocol, because not every application building is going to be able to have that same advantage. And so for us, Stargate, the economics of Stargate, all of that are kept completely separate from the economics of LayerZero. Stargate is really meant to be a key, the way we think about it is this sort of like key composable, sort of money Lego that sits in the middle that adds this liquidity transfer layer across all of existing DeFi, and it's built on top of LayerZero, and it clearly is going to drive a lot of value to LayerZero and the LayerZero ecosystem. But the individual economics are meant to be completely separate. So hopefully that
Cool.
answers it.
Yeah, just a follow-up question, just a small follow-up question. So in the tokenomics of the Stargate, like correct me if I'm wrong, there's a 17% reserve for investors, private investors. So is that round already done, or is this like is going to LayerZero private investors?
So you will hear, again, this is, I'm a little bit bound about what I can say. You'll hear a lot about this in sort of like the coming weeks.
Okay.
LayerZero Labs is the entity that raised, is the entity that raised, right? That went through the fundraising event, and LayerZero Labs, has both LayerZero and Stargate as subproducts. So you can assume that equity holders in the equity company, that anything like that kind of went to all of the underlying LayerZero Lab products. But again, you'll hear more about this later. I'm just my hands are a little bit tied at the moment, so hopefully that gives you enough.
Yeah. Just like last question, it's a technical from the technical side and more towards basically just to develop perspective. Uh, I'm fairly new to basically bridges, and but I understand programming. I've been a programmer my entire life, and I've been very active on the Cosmos ecosystem. So can I like will this be right to say that LayerZero actually is bringing IBC to entire chains where it is not possible?
Yeah, so IBC at its core, right, is a messaging standard. The goal of IBC is, with any messaging standard, is hey, it's very easy when you write your own application to just say this is how I'm going to this is how I'm going to pack the bytes, and this is how I'm going to unpack the bytes on the other side. This is how I'm going to interpret that. But when you have a lot of applications that are all communicating with each other, now you run into this issue of, well, everybody's going to do this the same way because everybody needs to know like how to interpret this, right? So IBC as a messaging standard was meant effectively to solve that. And they reinvented this transport protocol. Like they made their transport protocol that is running on-chain like clients within the Tendermint system. We have talked very closely with the Cosmos team, huge fans of IBC. We published this article on building IBC on top of LayerZero as a transport layer. And so that's exactly right. We'll be building IBC, the messaging standard, on top of LayerZero, and that will be connecting everywhere, right? So you'll be able to use the IBC messaging standard on every chain effectively.
And there will be decentralized, like who will run these relays? Like, will this be run by LayerZero Lab only, or like you will bring
No,
validators to run over there?
100%. So both the oracles and relayers are completely open and permissionless systems. Anybody can run them. Anybody can participate in those, but it's different than most systems. Is it's up to the applications to actually delegate who they want to use, right? So like a small application might say, okay, you know what? I'm 100% fine externalizing this risk, pricing it, and saying, maybe Chainlink is my Oracle and Coinbase as my relayer. And I'll externalize that. And I'm okay with the assumption that both Chainlink and Coinbase will not be simultaneously malicious and colluding against me, right? Maybe that's a risk that as a small application I'm willing to price. And for a very large application, they might run their own relayer. And when they do that, even if 100% of other network participants are 100% malicious, nothing matters. Unless they're colluding against themselves, which they obviously will never do, there's nothing that anybody else can do to impact it. So there's no Sybil, there's no BFT, there's no like consensus being actively formed, but a relayer and an Oracle can both look like anything. They can be very broad and distributed systems, and it's sort of up to the people operating them to structure them however they want. And this can be existing systems as well, right? You could have like a transaction going from Solana to Cosmos, and the Oracle is the complete set of Solana validators, and the relayer is like the complete set of Tendermint validators, right? There's a world where that's what that structure looks like. And it's really about what does the application want to price on this sort of Pareto frontier of like cost and security. And so moving all of that up the stack to the application layer is we think hugely important. So the example I always give is, you have two applications. One of them is validating on chain B that it owns a copper sword in a game on chain A, and the other is transferring $500 million, right? In which world should those both be opting into the same set of security hyperparameters? Either somebody is wildly overpaying for security, or somebody is not getting nearly enough security. And so for us, all of that moves up the stack, and sort of applications are able to make those decisions.
Got it. Thanks a lot. Really excited for this project. Thanks a lot.
Amazing. Absolutely.
Thanks, Late. Thank you very much. Okay, we've got Zulian, I think. Yeah, probably be our last question here as well. So go ahead, Zulian.
Yeah, thanks for taking the time. Sorry, didn't mean to cut you off. I guess the question is, how can the average participant right now get involved? One, and then could you kind of compare the differences on LayerZero to something like Thorchain that has, I guess, the cross-chain exchanges? Like, are you saying the main difference is that you can actually interact with kind of a cross-chain contract? Would that be kind of the biggest difference or unique take?
So just to be clear, is the question, how is LayerZero different, or how is Stargate different?
Both. Yeah, I'm guess Stargate and LayerZero are bringing kind of slightly different things, but they are built on, Stargate's built on LayerZero. So how would those kind of be unique?
Yeah, sure. So Thorchain, right? Thorchain is a DEX. It's meant to take a native asset from one chain and swap it to another chain, and they do this by sort of like a pegging structure with Rune. So maybe you have Bitcoin paired to Rune, and then you also have like ETH paired to Rune, and so now you can go Bitcoin to Rune and like Rune to ETH. Okay, totally fine. That's a DEX structure. It's meant to swap different assets across different chains, and that's like a DEX is super useful. I think we've all seen that that's incredibly useful. LayerZero itself is a core messaging primitive. It's not a bridge, it's not a DEX, it's not any of these things, right? Those are things that would be built on top of LayerZero. So use cases of LayerZero might be like, oh, hey, you're a lending protocol. Rather than I collateralize ETH on Ethereum, I have to borrow, I go to some external bridge, I pay a fee, I swap to the native asset, I farm, I swap back, I bridge back, I paid 2 more fees, I repay my loan, I take back my collateral. Now with LayerZero, you can collateralize like ETH on Ethereum, send a message to the destination chain that confirms it. You borrow directly there, farm, repay, message comes back, collateral's unlocked, right? That's generic messaging between. Voting across chain, where you have you basically create contracts that can vote across any chain. Right now you have applications where you're Aave or whoever, and if you want to go to another chain, most people are relying on external bridges, which means if you have like 5 different bridges, you're going to get 5 different wrapped synthetics of your token on the other chain that has no voting rights, it has no custom functionality. Like if your token has rebasing or token has any sort of unique functionality within it, all of that is stripped out. You're getting issued like a vanilla ERC20 or SPL20 on the other side. With generic messaging, now applications can do that directly. There is no need to pay 6, 8, 10 bips to some external bridge and get a wrapped wrapped token on the other side for your users. Now your contract itself can just confirm like, hey, I've locked here, I've burnt here some number of tokens minted on that chain. So all of that basically you get to save your users from and have ultimate ownership on your tokens on the other side. But yeah, with the generic messaging primitive, you can build anything. You can build again dexes, bridges, any application, whether it's games, whether it's all of this. Like you think about generic messaging as you think about packets on the internet, right? You're sending some bytes payload and you're interpreting that, and whatever logic you can implement on chain, you can do with that. So LayerZero's goal is fundamentally different than Thorchain's goal. Thorchain's goal was be a DEX, be this sort of asset swap across all of these chains, hugely useful. LayerZero's goal has always been like be the core messaging primitive that enables everything to be built on top of it. And so Stargate specifically, Stargate is not a DEX, right? Stargate is not going asset A to asset B. It's not swapping ETH to AVAX or whatever. Stargate is more akin to a stable swap where it's solving this liquidity transfer portion of like kind assets. So this could be WETH to WETH or wrapped Bitcoin to wrapped Bitcoin. It might be USDC to USDC, or it might be USDC to another asset that's similar, USDT or whatever, right? Similar to how maybe curve pools are. But really the goal of that is this interaction across chains where contracts, you can take really complex bundles of contracts that might be like unstake. So let's take 6 contract calls across 2 chains where you like on chain A, you're unstake, you swap, you initiate a bridge. Let's say it's Stargate. You claim on the other side, you swap again and you stake, right? Now you can bundle all 6 of those transactions into one single transaction from the source chain where the user doesn't need to have source and destination gas. So they might be going ETH to Solana. They don't need to have both ETH and Sol. So they can have a totally empty wallet on the other side. The whole transaction flow gets executed. They're now staked in the Solana farm. They haven't done anything. They haven't had to do anything else other than sign that one transaction on the ETH side. They've only ever thought about gas and ETH. And then they can also, be airdropped Sol on the other side if they want to play around in that ecosystem. So it's really about like the extensibility of apps within the DeFi ecosystem. And so hopefully that describes it. I mean, they really are like quite different. But from my mind, that's how I frame it.
Yeah, no, that was an awesome breakdown. Yeah, I think you covered it. I guess, yeah, the main question is how would we get involved, or how could we get exposed to Stargate and LayerZero at the moment, or just like moving forward as just basic users?
I would say the best thing you can possibly do is be involved in the community, within the LayerZero community. We'll be again, some things I can't talk about, but in the coming weeks, we'll be telling you guys tons more. I would say just be as involved as you possibly can. Stargate, obviously, tomorrow is the auction, the bonding curves, and all of like the protocol and liquidity goes live. So Stargate will be live tomorrow, and all of that will be sort of available tomorrow. From the LayerZero side, I would just say, be as active as you can. Ask questions. We love people who think about like architecture or what could be built, or we like that's the stuff that excites us. Is okay. Now this primitive is here. Like, what can you do with it? What kind of cool things are we not thinking about that people are going to build or sort of motivate others to build? And so, yeah, I would just say be involved and keep your ears open.
Awesome. Thanks for taking time, guys. This is an awesome project.
Absolutely. Thanks so much.
All right. Thank you very much, Zulian. That's going to wrap us here for today. Thank you, everybody, for coming out. I really appreciate everyone that's here, and yeah, all the questions that came in as well. Okay, this has been recorded and will be up on the LayerZero YouTube. It's also live streaming, so it might just be ready to go very shortly. And if you have a look into if those in YouTube and Twitch right now it's being live streamed to, there are some links to the Stargate Finance Discord, followed by the Twitters for LayerZero and Stargate, and finally the Stargate Finance website. You can head over there too, and you'll be able to get all the information that you're looking for. Either get yourself connected for the auction and get ready for that. So thanks. We also see there's some Git books there too. Hopefully we'll get the Stargate ones as well there. But yeah, please hop into the Discord, either LayerZero or into the Stargate one as well. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out there. Try and stay very active in that part here over the week, because it's going to be very busy, and I know everyone has lots of questions. But really appreciate everyone coming out here today. This has been great, and yeah, thanks so much, Primo, Raz, and Maki for coming out, and we'll talk to everybody soon.
Amazing. Thanks so much, guys. Thanks, Tangle.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, everyone.